Alrighty. My question is how many inches am I putting on each row? From the end of it to the end of this one is 1 inch. Alright, I'm going to get busy and I'm going to do this all day long. And I'm not going to put it on and we'll see how big it gets. Well, I go to the store and I come back and she's like, I'm not moving. I'm not moving. I'm glad I don't use my kitchen table to eat at because she would most definitely be in the way. Well, unfortunately, I broke the tip off of this one. And it don't want to go through them. Can you see the difference in them? So, this one right here is most definitely gone. I don't know why. Well, it's plastic. What do you expect out of plastic? I'm glad I got what kind of use I got out of it. I probably ought not throw it away because I might be able to use it somewhere else. So I might end up doing that. Might as well go ahead and add on another strip. And, but Mama Cat was up here helping me. She ain't no more. She said, I'm going outside. It's pretty. Alrighty. I'm going to get back busy again and try to get some more done. Looks like Mama Cat has decided she wants to sit on my rug. Oh, she's going to move. I may get started again. Well, I wish I took a picture or found out what time it was when I first started. It was 10:40. I went and got a picture of it. The time now is 7:05. And let's see what the measurement is on it. 18 inches. We just got just a tiny little bit. But 18 inches. I'm going to quit for tonight. It's getting too dark. And I'm not that good at seeing. But there it is. It's a lot bigger. It's like 4 inches bigger. It was 14 inches. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yep. 4 inches bigger. I can't wait till this right here straightens out. Alright, we'll get busy on it again in the morning.
So just to keep everything on track here as far as how I'm tracking this. Strawberry Lake happens. You come back for summer break. You go to Catholic school. They beat you for lying about a Sasquatch encounter that turns out at least one of them knew was true. I'm curious, and you probably don't have answers to this, but like I do wonder, did they know that you were telling the truth and trying to get you to say no? And then once you wouldn't submit to the beatings, then that's when they come like, okay, yeah, you're right. This actually happens. Either way, that happens at the school, and then you go into counseling through the school.
Yep.
And through the counseling at the school, they erase your memory. And now you're having encounters again, but you don't remember your first encounters, so it's almost like rewriting a whole new story for you.
Yeah. So
wow. Okay.
So I go from being real comfortable around, him at Strawberry Lake and, having zero fear to like, I don't know what's going on, because I'll take off from where I did, a little while ago, and the encounters were just me seeing at first, what I thought was a dog, because he was always running away, and he was small, and he wasn't that, I mean, when you get like he was the same size as me, and I was 10 when I was seeing him at the farm. You put a 10-year-old on the ground on all fours, and if you actually run on all fours, they're pretty small, and they just look like us. When we started seeing him with some of the other kids, when we saw him run away, we thought he was a Rottweiler or something. Because actually back then, not many people back in 1977 had Rottweilers, and we just see pictures of them, and they're big, stocky dogs, and that's what we thought we were seeing at first, because we're stupid kids. The first real weird encounters happened when this one kid I met from, it was another Catholic thing I went to during like the week during the summer. This is in Caledonia, and we're at some church thing, and I met this kid, we'll call him Mike K, and there's two boys named Mike. I'll get to that. And that also turned out to be a name that one of the kids named the Sasquatch because he could say that, but I'll get to that. We went up to this kid that I met at the church came over on like a Wednesday. We didn't have anything to do. We played around in the barns, and for some reason, back then, I mean, these woods were 3 miles away, and it was okay for us to go play up in the woods. I wouldn't let my kids do that.
Yeah, but the world's different now. I mean, like my mom used to let me run all over the place, but we lived rural life, and it was okay.
It just sounds so weird because like we're both. I think Mike was 9; he hadn't turned 10 yet, and I was 10. And we went 3 miles away up to this woods, and it wasn't a real big woods. It's a small chunk of land that's about 3 or 4 miles long, but it's only about 2 miles wide. But it attaches to much more woods. But this chunk, my dad said it was like, oh, it's safe for them to go up there and play around. There's a few hippies and people hang out there in the old logging trails back then, but it wasn't nothing dangerous that they thought. We rode our bikes up there, but and everybody thought that Sasquatch that was up there was from there, but he never was. So we got up there, and the first thing we did was just check out the woods. We found a hippie van back there, and some guy freaking hanging out back there, and then we found a bunch of connected bushes. It was the next thing we found that were honeysuckle and different kinds of bushes like that had like plumed out like a big, huge mushroom, and underneath them you go under there, and there was plenty of room in there underneath them, like on an umbrella. And the first one that we went to didn't have anything, and it connected to another one that went in, and it had tinsel from Christmas tinsel and Christmas ornaments hanging up all inside of it. It had pictures that came in frames that people would throw away, stuck up on the side of the walls into the branches and stuff like that, just stuck there.
Oh, so this isn't a barn?
No, this is when we were in the woods. Mike and I went up to the woods and away from our barns, and we went in the woods and set our bikes down, and we. The first thing we checked out was these bushes, and we started going through these bushes because I actually got a video of this too, of the actual bush, but it was really old and there wasn't any leaves on it anymore, but it actually looked like it had kind of a doorway going into it. So we went in there, and you can actually go from bush to bush to bush underneath this thing.
Gotcha.
So many of them.
Okay.
And we found this one that had all the weird Christmas stuff, and it also had like a bunch of glass bottles lined up in there, all really old ones, and then sticks in little orderly fashion put in size. And then it had a couple blankets in there, and it had a whole bunch of magazines like Playboy, this and that and the other thing, and a couple other things I can't remember. But we thought it was a bum's hideout. We thought it was some human went in there and hid in there. And we left there, and we went further back in the woods until we found these two other kids. They're about our age. One's name is Russell, and the other boy's name was Mike. The other, so there's two Mikes. There's one that's 9, and the other Mike we met was the same age. He was about 9, and then Russell was probably about 12 or 13. But these two boys were setting up camp, and they were going to stay the night there, and they were putting these stairs up on this tree, and they were going to put a fort up in this tree. And, we hung out with them for a while, and we actually helped them put the last step on this thing. We had to like almost climb up there in like a pyramid to get this last step way up in this tree, and it's still there from exactly the way we left it. I got pictures of me standing next to it and everything, and that's another thing that brought my memory back. But I'll get to that later. But we went there and we decided we're going to camp with these guys, so we had to go back and find our bikes and go get our gear and come all the way back. So we went up to my house, and it took forever for this other kid, Mike, that I was with, to get permission and get his clothes, change his clothes out of his church clothes, and ride back up there. It's dusk. It's getting dark. And what I didn't know, there was one trail that just went in a loop, and we followed that, and we couldn't find these boys. So we decided to set up in some pines that had a opening where we could pop the tent up and just set up there for the night and go find them in the morning is what we decided to do. So we set up, and when it got dark, and I don't know what time it was because it was September. No, it was late August. Yeah, it was late August. It was still light at about like 10 o'clock or something. So it was probably about 11 o'clock, I think, when something started happening. We heard noises and grunts and all sorts of weird stuff. And then we hear Russell calling for Mike, which is my friend that I was with, also his name. So we didn't know if he was calling for the other Mike or if they're just messing with us. And he's like, Mike, Mike. He's screaming for Mike. It's the first thing we heard. And we just thought he was messing with it. And then we heard all sorts of, Sasquatch noises, all the weird noises and whoops and growls and just like all sorts of, something coming through the woods. And we're like getting scared. We're pretty young. We're all like, if they're trying to scare us, they're doing a good job of it. We decided to leave all our gear there, get our bikes, and just come back in the morning and get it. We didn't know what was going on, if they're trying to mess with us or not. We rode all the way home. And I remember it had to have been just after the news because my parents were still awake watching the Tonight Show. And they opened the door for us and called us chickens for chickening out. We went upstairs, going to bed, thinking that they just messed with us. And we went up there in the morning to grab our gear. And at the road, 108th Street in Morris Lake, where it turns into Harris Creek right there, the county line, there was Channel 13 WZZM news crew van interviewing Russell with an ambulance pulling up, cop cars, people on horseback, and a whole bunch of searchers with dogs looking for Mike. And they wouldn't let us in to get our gear, and we sat there and if I can ever find this footage where the other Mike and I are, behind Russell as they're filming him, and Russell's talking to the crew saying, the news crew saying that his friend got taken by some hairy bum because we told them about the books and stuff we found in the bush, and all that crap, and we thought it was a bum. So he, in turn, thought it was some hairy bum living out there, and that's what he told the news crew. And that wrapped up, and we finally talked to a cop and tried to get our stuff back, and they said, you can't go in there right now. We're searching for this boy, and we don't want you in there. We're going to call our head guy over here, and he'll get your stuff and get it back to you later today. So this guy, and, I have a lot of issues with this name. It was a fake name that he used. It was an agent, a Native American agent named, he called himself John Redcorn.
And that was his fake name?
That was his fake name, but that was before the King of the Hill freaking cartoon came out. And John Redcorn's a really common Native American name anyway. That's why he picked it. And his real name was Jerry. I can't say his last name. I'd really like to because I know all the agents by name, and I actually found some of them. He comes up to us and tells us he's going to get us our stuff. And that was the first time we met him, and he brought our stuff back later that night. But that wasn't going to be the last time we were going to see him. And the encounters continued a little bit after that, seeing here and there. And Mike, they did find him, that boy, later that day with no clothes on, and he wouldn't talk. He was so terrified for like the rest of the day. He just couldn't even talk. But he was completely physically unharmed.
Okay, so before you go further off that,
watch what Mama Cat does.
They found Mike. Do you remember what his descriptions were of anything that happened to him? Because I'm assuming you didn't find the news footage yet, because you said if you
I had a copy of the news footage.
You do have a copy.
I had a copy of the news footage. The government took it. from my mom.
Oh.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
I don't know. I have to find Russell. If anybody knows who Russell Yeager is, he's the older boy, and then I don't care if anybody knows. Mike Karn was the one boy that got taken. I have to find those two yet. I did find, which is really weird. Russell worked in the same county building as I did. I used to work for Berry County Courts and Law. And when I tried to find Mike Karn a little while ago, he was working in the office, right? And I'm going to the office where you find, information on the houses back then of, who lived in there. It was in the deeds room, and he worked in there. And I just started telling the clerk there, he's over in the corner. This is also very bizarre, but he retired, and I haven't been able to find his home address yet. That's another one of my witnesses I got to talk to. But I started talking to the other clerk there about, who I was going to try to find, which is Mike Karn. And I told him a little bit about this basic, that, we met him in the woods and stuff, back when we were kids. And I told him the spot and all that. And Russell's over in the corner listening to me. He's like, hey, wait a minute. He's going like, I know Mike Karn. I still know him. And he's going like, I was that kid in the woods. And I was just like, oh my God. And like, they even put a thing on my, I think my Facebook page or something. It was like, I hope you find your evidence. You people from the court, because like they flipped out and just like, because it was just a chance meeting and it was him.
So Russell
was
the kid that was there the night that Mike was taken, was there when you checked in.
Yeah, when I checked into the county to go try to find the other kid, and he had worked there the whole time I'd worked there, but I didn't know I was working in the maintenance department, and he was working in the deed. So I worked there for like 2 or 3 years, and he would say hi to me, but I had no idea who he was, until later, because
so he was able to corroborate what happened that night.
Yep, in front of everybody in that freaking office. And
wow,
it was amazing.
What was his recollection of it?
He still thought it was a hairy bum.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't know any different.
Wow.
And I don't think Mike Karn does either. But I told him, I said that was not a hairy bum.
So at the point of this incident, you had your memory erased, but you were now having interaction with these chimpanzees again. And so what you thought they were chimps at the time. Did you ever connect the dots between, hey, I'm having these interactions? No. So you, when this whole thing happened, you thought it was a hairy bum too?
Yeah.
Okay.
They actually blamed it on, this is another thing that I haven't been able to dig up either. And this is really tragic sounding. They blamed it on because I told them about the bush and the stuff that I found, and the government found that. They went there, and the magazines had address on there, so they went after that guy. He was before they figured out it was Sasquatch, right? They arrested him. He was a student, he was a temporary bus driver, and he just lived up the road, and they blamed it on him.
Okay.
And he got fired, and everybody ridiculed him for it, and then they emancipated him, and they dropped the charges, but he killed himself.
That's so sad.
Oh, there's way more. It gets really bad. I mean, the government just really. Anyway, I'll get to that. So yeah, they found Mike, and he was okay, but I went to go visit him a couple days later, and he still wasn't talking. I just met him, so like I went up there with my dad, and we gave him a kind of a get well card or something like that, and he wasn't seeing anybody, so. Shortly after that, the other stuff was going to happen. I had my memory erased, and I would never see him again. But I'll get to that. The other encounters continued when I started going down to my neighbors, which were south of me about 1.5 miles. There was 2 households with a bunch of kids down there. The first household, there's 3 boys and 1 young girl and a baby, and they had 2 boys and a girl next door that they're all about the same age. So I was down there playing after like couple of weeks or something like that after the first encounter that I just told you about up at the woods. And we were seeing the dog thing. going in and out, of the brush and stuff like that. We didn't think much of it because that previous day, another neighbor had lost a really large dog. I can't remember what breed it was though. It was like some sort of Saint Bernard and something other mix, And we went and found that and brought them back, and they were all happy, and they gave us, a few bucks or something like that, and we thought it was a big thing, back then. As little kids, $1 was a hell of a lot of money, but
yeah, just in general, it was a lot more money than it is
when we
now.
started seeing the other dog thing, we started following around because we thought it was, something else we could, take back to somebody else. But right along that same time, this other kid that was a year or so younger than me, I think it was a year younger than me, and Tim, was disappearing away from our group of friends and saying that he was playing with an orangutan in the cornfield, and there was a cornfield in between our two houses, was stretched about a mile and had the creek running in between our two houses and a little pond in between back there. And this kid was sitting along this cornfield trying to coax this thing out for days, I guess, and none of us really believed him. We thought he was making up an imaginary friend. So we played by ourselves, and when we're playing by ourselves, we're seeing, the dog thing going on. There was one time we started wrestling around, and Tim was up by the cornfield waiting for his friend. He was convinced it was an orangutan because of the coloration of it. And there was no internet. He had like the Encyclopedia Britannica, the whole thing, and he had looked up all this information on freaking orangutans, and he was up there. He said researchers have better luck taking having less clothes on. He was up there in his underwear sometimes, just waiting for this thing trying to come up. The cornfield was right alongside of their house. There was a tree line, and it was really close to his house. And he was sitting up there with a whole bunch of toys all the time alongside of this cornfield, trying to coax this thing out for days. And the one time we were wrestling and made a great big huge mud pit down by the creek, got in trouble for it. We saw the juvenile Sasquatch in the bushes there, and he turned around and ran away. And we thought it was a dog. We were going to go chase it. And he ran across the creek, jumped across the creek a couple times, and we lost track of him. There's three of us, and we're all really fast. I mean, kids, and all of us were in track later, in high school and stuff like that. We couldn't keep up with him. We split up, the three of us. And one of the youngest kids was like only 7 or 8 years old. And he went across the street, and we were on the other side of the street, and we kind of just combed down. And all of a sudden, this little kid, he's over here in this drainage ditch over here. He went up in one of those drain tunnels up there. And we went over there, and it was a dead-end drain tunnel, so we could just see it was like up in the dark, stuck in there. We could just see his butt still. We never got to see him fully. We're still thinking it's a dog. So this one kid, Brian, starts poking him with a stick. And he's grabbing the stick with his back foot, and we're still not putting this together. Because you could barely see it, down in this tunnel. It's still kind of dark. He's grabbing it with his back foot, and he's like grabbing the stick and going, making dog noises. And all of a sudden, he says they're doing cat noises. He's going, meow, meow, and dog noises. And we're like, that dog's got a cat in there. This is freaking freaky. We're just like, we're going like, and he sounded really vicious. He was growling at us. We didn't spend much time down there, and we decided we were going to tell an adult. Well, when the adult came home, Tom, which is Tim's dad, Tim was the kid that was by the cornfield looking for him all the time. He comes home and he sees all that mud we made in the yard there, that big wrestling match that we had there, and we turned into a big mud pit. He got all mad and started screaming at us, and sent me home. So, we had to pay for the grass to repair the thing. So I didn't go down there for a few days. And Tim still, sitting down by the cornfield for these few days. It was getting close to Labor Day towards the end of the summer, and I went down there that weekend, and they were gone, most of the family. And Tim was down there, and he had a babysitter, and they had a baby at the time. And the babysitter was in the house with the baby. The rest of the family was gone school shopping. And I knocked on the door, and the babysitter goes, "Oh, Tim's out there in the cornfield playing with his troll friend. See, look." And I looked out the kitchen window, and you could see a little troll face sticking out of the freaking cornfield.
And who said that? The babysitter?
The babysitter saw it, and she thought it looked like a troll.
And she didn't have any concerns about it?
I don't know.
What?
I know it is, but they had another thing with the babysitter they're having. And this is another thing that people find hard to believe because it was like 77 or 78. And she was stealing money. And Tom they had a VCR, but they didn't really have a small camera back then. They had a beta camera, and I got an advertisement for it. And it really did come out that year. It was about like that big. And they had some sort of a news program on one of the morning news things, and I told them about it. And I actually saw it first. It was going like, they put a nanny cam. They just put that cam inside of a bear and hooked it up to the VCR, and he did that. And he had that in the entertainment center, and he had a hole in the wall because me and Tim watched him set it up, and he put a little hole in the wall and ran the cables to the kids' room to where he had the VCR set up to where it was recording. So it was from beta to VCR to the TV. And he wanted to catch her stealing. So he left some money out too. And so I'll get to that in a minute where that camera comes in. So I go out to the cornfield and Tim's out there and he's sitting on this red ball, one of those kickballs kind of things. And he's in his underwear. And I wasn't even going to draw this at first because I didn't think it was important. It was important. And, he really thought he was, and it really does work too. If you go out there, and I'll get to that sometime later, the less clothes you wear, the less, suspicious they are of you having something hidden in your clothes, I think. But for an 8 or 9-year-old kid to figure this out was something. But he sat up there and he had all these Tonka trucks all lined up around him. He had footballs, baseballs, all his sister's little dolls. He was trying to coax this thing out of this cornfield, and he wasn't having any luck. He was like pushing this thing towards him, and he's going like, I can't get him to come out. He was just here, and you scared him. He left, and I get up there, and I was like, yeah, sure, right. I saw him up there. He's going like, I know there's something in there. And he goes, he's going like, I'll get him to try to come out, and I don't remember what he did. He called him Mike, I think, and he did that. I'll get to that, why he made that Mike noise, where he sounded like he was saying Mike. I think it had something to do with the searchers up there, I don't know, the previous week or so before, looking for the boy Mike with all bullhorns going, Mike, Mike, Mike. And he actually, this kid, Tim, goes, he can say Mike. I'm going like, yeah, right, whatever. He does pop out eventually. And he comes out, at first, he just comes out of the cornfield just about maybe 2 or 3 feet and sits on his butt, puts his knees up to his chest and puts his arms around there and just kind of sits there and watches us real quietly. This is only about 5 or 10 feet away. And Tim's trying to get him to come closer, pushes a Tonka truck away or towards him. And he pushes it away, pushes a couple balls up there. And he's not interested. And he pushes that kickball up there. And the juvenile Sasquatch that he called Mike or Sammy, which was the same one, hits it with his left hand. And the ball goes sailing into a tree and pops it. Hits it so hard. And I'm really concerned about this. I'm like, oh my God. But Tim's like, oh my God, that was so cool. I finally got him to do something. And he was just all laughing and giggling and everything. He's so happy to get this thing to do something. And I'm just thinking to myself, something's not right. And he's going like, no, it's an orangutan, dude. He's safe. I've been around him for like a week and all this. I go, okay. So I sat there for a couple minutes and tried to watch him interact. And then this thing tried to grab him and pull him into the cornfield. I grabs his arm and starts pulling him towards the cornfield. And I'm like, oh, this is not right. I tried to get his arm off of him, and I couldn't break him free, and I was kind of freaking out. And Tim's all laughing all damn time, and it wasn't Tim. He wasn't that kind of kid. He was a really smart, kid that doesn't. He took a lot of things really seriously. He was just acting all goofy, and when I tried to break free of the Sasquatch grip on him, the juvenile Sasquatch just kind of looked right at me and he goes, let's go. And he stands up and he gives me a great big hug. I mean, to the point to where I almost crushed me to where I couldn't even breathe. And Tim's laughing at me going like, oh, he's humping you. Oh, look at that. And that's what Tim thought. And I'm like, he just immediately lets go of me and goes back into the cornfield. And I'm like, Tim, this is serious. You got to go tell an adult, put your clothes back on. And we went back in, and after he got his clothes on and grabbed some, what was it, macaroni and cheese that the the babysitter made with wieners or something. We ate that real quick and ran up to my my house because my dad was home and it was holiday weekend because I knew we had to tell somebody. And I got Tim to go along and the babysitter let me go. And we go up in between our house and his house was that cornfield, and there was a fence alongside of it, one of those old rickety fences made out of metal and a little barbed wire in between and the squared off little things. And he goes, oh, he won't cross that fence. He won't cross the creek. He's an orangutan. They hate water. They won't go over fences. And like, he's on. And I was like, I'm still like getting this thing in my mind of, even then I remember trying to remember Strawberry Lake. I'm going like, well, where did he come from? And he's going like, well, maybe he came from a circus or something. That still didn't click in my head, but it was a little bit. And the whole time we're walking up there, he's trying to convince me that's an orangutan. And we look over and we can see the corn moving. He's following us. And Tim's going like, oh, hey, there he is. Hi, Mike. How's it going? I forgot to tell you, Mike. He could say Mike. He goes like, oh, I got him to say Mike. And he goes, Mike, like that when we're at the cornfield. But like, it didn't.
So, whoa, don't brush over that. Don't brush over that. So you're saying the juvenile Sasquatch said Mike?
Yeah, but it didn't really sound like us saying Mike. It was more like Mike. Like that.
Was he trying to say Mike?
Yeah.
And why was he trying to say Mike?
Because Tim was repeating it over and over. He's got to get him to say Mike. Look, and like I was going like he never really got him. Now that I think about it, he never really got him to say Mike. That's the only thing he knew how to say because he heard it over the speaker. That's what I think anyway, because it makes the most sense. But it wasn't something that was really, you recognize as the word Mike.
Yeah.
It sounded like more like the word Mike with a burp in it or something. But I forgot about that. Yeah, he got him to say that before he. We're going up to my house and he's jumping up in the cornfield waving at us. They're jumping up high enough to where he could see going like this out of the cornfield every once in a while, and Tim's waving at him. We're going like, I don't know about this, dude. And then when they get up to my house, and my dad doesn't believe us.
Of course.
He thinks we're just making this stuff up. And finally we just give up, and Tim has to go home to have dinner. I'm going to have dinner. So he walks home. And after dinner, I wanted to go play down in the barns. And my parents are going like, no, there's this dog thing, and now you're getting this orangutan thing, and not going to go down to the barns. They're going like, well, what if I go down to the milking barn? And the milking barn had, all the milking things for the cows in the bottom, but above it had a low ceiling area where they had all the hay stored for the cows there. I mean, there was a hay barn next to it, but they had, all that. What they do is, bring some over and feed the cows with it when it's right up there, and they can, throw it down to the cows in the.
Is this your farm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. But it didn't have any animals in it when we moved in there. It was all overgrown and everything. And I mean, it was a really old farm. This particular building was over 100 years old when we moved in there, and it had a couple towers on top of it too, on top of the roofs that you could get on. But the second floor had hay doors with casters on it, and it had two ladders that went up there with doors on them on top of the ladders, so you could close off the whole